On to the class cards. We start with Warrior with the Fierce Monkey. Congratulations, the Warrior Arena Matters movement has taken off and given an excellent common to the Warrior, 3 mana, 3/4, a beast with taunt. I'm going to go ahead and just say that the beast tag is not going to matter at all for Warrior. This card would have been pretty amazing for quite a few classes if it were neutral, but it's good that the Warriors get the specific 3 mana 3/4 taunt. No, I still don't think Bolster will be a thing. Just a nice basic mid-range minion. Warrior didn't play Spider Tank before. The question is taunt going to be good enough to make Fierce Monkey good? And I don't think so. I think this is kind of just a arena card. But if mid-range Warrior were to be a thing, then Fierce Monkey just might barely make it in. Just barely. I don't think so still though. In Arena this card's going to be really good for Warrior, and if League of Explorers continues the trend of having slightly more representation of cards, then Warrior will be a lot better in Arena. Warrior also got Obsidian Destroyer, which is Dr. Boom Light. So I was thinking, is this card even comparable to Dr. Boom? Is it like as good? Is it almost as good? Is it better? And as it turns out, it's not better. So part of the reason why Dr. Boom is good is because the 1/1 Boom bots usually end up killing a minion. And that's really important. The Scarabs have taunt, and that's kind of annoying, but so many classes can just deal with your 1/1 Scarab. They deal with your one big card with some kind of small removal, like a small mana cost, big guy removal, such as BGH. But it is cool that they got something, either a Hogger Light or a Dr. Boom Light, whatever you want to call it. I think even if you get 3/1/1 Scarabs with this guy, it's still not better than Dr. Boom. And at first I was like, oh man, now you can play 3 Dr. Booms. Dr. Boom and 2 Obsidian Destroyers, but unfortunately this card is not as good as Dr. Boom. And I'm not even sure how many Dr. Booms you would want to put into a Control Warrior deck. Control Warrior almost considered removing Dr. Boom just because it was just a generally big card with no real utility. And I don't think Control Warrior would put into Dr. Boom. This card is worse than Dr. Boom, so it's not going to make the cut. In Arena, this card is better than War Golem, of course. War Golem's kind of like an average card. It has the ability to win the game by itself. War Golem had the opportunity, but Obsidian Destroyer, like sometimes you're up against a class that can't deal 1 damage, and then you just spawn a lot of guys, or you play it on an empty board, you spawn a bunch of guys over time, you get a lot of value. You're kind of almost like a paladin. It's a good card in Arena. In Constructed, won't see play. Cursed Blade, a 1 mana 2/3 weapon, is amazing. But boy, is that card text pretty intense. So, I do appreciate cards which have strong stats and come with a drawback. I really love them. That said though, this one is going to hurt too much for Control Warriors. And in Aggro Warriors, I think it's got a tiny bit of potential. Just because it is 1 mana, deal 6 damage over 3 turns. But you might already have had too many weapons with 2 Fire Warracks and 2 Death Spites. But yes, if you do find a deck to put this in, it would be an aggro deck. In Arena, it's really interesting, but I think this card might just be worth the risk to put in. Because it is a 3-for-1, and your life total doesn't matter quite as much. And, you know, I say 3-for-1, but maybe more of a 2-for-1. You obviously would attack with it the very first turn you play it, because you do want it to break pretty quickly. Well, I guess it's not obvious whether or not you attack with it on your first turn. Because on turn 1, I don't think I would go Cursed Blade attack phase. I might go Cursed Blade and just pass. And then you kill the 3/2 and you take 6 damage. You kill a 3/2, you take 6 damage. You help kill like a larger minion, like a 4/5, and you take 8 damage. So that's 20 damage that you take through Cursed Blade. But the key is 20 is not 30. It's pretty tough. Interesting card. I love cards with low stats, or with high stats and a drawback. But this drawback, it might be just a little too much. And you know, you look at it and you're saying, oh, Trump, you just described a really bad scenario where you take 20 damage. But here's the thing, Arena's all about board control. So you take the 20 damage, but you have a board, and then they can't kill you because you use hero power to armor up. That's actually something that could happen. I don't think the card is absolutely terrible in Arena, is what I'm trying to say. And in Constructed, it has some application in aggro, just because it can take down 2 cards for really cheap. Dark Peddler. Last expansion, Warlocks didn't get a lot of love. And that was because they had Handlock, they had Malalock, they had Zoo. Everything was going for them. But now we're finally getting something that seems pretty reasonable. It's 2 mana 2/2, and if you've watched my previous discussion on Discover, you'll know that I kind of think of it as drawing a card almost. Discover means you're presented with 3 cards and you choose one. So in this case, Battle Card Discover, a 1-cost card, means you're presented with 3 Warlock or neutral cards, and then you take one of them. The Warlock actually has a few good 1-cost cards, such as Moral Coil, and Soulfire is reasonable in Zoo, or even just in general. And there's a lot of good 1-cost cards out there. There's Beast of Sergeant, there's Young Priestess, there's Leper Gnome if you're playing it in Zoo. So just for 1 stat loss, and like a useful ability, you're getting kind of a trinket card. And I don't think you'll have enough room to put this into the heavy control decks like Handlock or Malalock. But in mid-range Warlock, that doesn't actually exist. You might get it. An extreme way of putting it would be you're getting a 2 mana 2/2 and you get to cast Tracking, but it is tracking for a really bad card. I mean, not a really bad card, it's tracking for an early game card. Correction, because you will choose what will usually be a good 1 mana card. And that can help a lot in smoothing out your mana curve. I think this card is it's a nice solid card. In Arena, this card will be very good. In Constructed, it remains to be seen whether or not there's enough impact in this card to make it work in the limited deck slot space that you're given for the control cards. Curse of Rafaam. For 2 mana, you give your opponent a cursed card. They take 2 damage on their turn. So, I guess the first thing to establish is how good is 2 mana to deal damage. So we've had a comparison before. It's Priest, 2 mana, deal 5 damage. That isn't seen very often, but is in Priest, which is a very non-aggressive class. Would Hunter take 2 mana, deal 5 damage to face? Probably. So we can't really directly compare that. Hunter or Warlocks can be aggressive if they build an aggressive Zoo deck. So I'm going to kind of vaguely say that 2 mana, deal 5 might be reasonable in an aggressive Warlock deck. So, what is this cursed card here? Cursed. Well, this is in your hand, take 2 damage at the start of your turn. Very important that's the start of your turn, because it means if you cast Curse of Rafaam, you're going to get in at least 2 damage. Now, the way to get rid of the cursed card is very similar to Chromagus, the encounter. You play the cursed card out of your hand, so basically you pay 2 mana and do nothing. If you are Curse of Rafaaming someone on your turn 2, they are most likely not going to be playing Cursed. They're probably going to be doing something actually useful, such as playing a minion or using a spell. And if you play Curse of Rafaam on turn 2, then you might lose because you didn't do anything useful on turn 2. Now, you could kind of consider it as something like 0 mana deal 2 damage, because you're paying 2 mana, and then all they have to do is pay 2 mana as well. Probably the only reason why these cards are any good in the Chromagus encounter is because Chromagus got to cast Curse. Chromagus got to curse you for free, basically. If you're paying the same amount of mana to negate their card, and all they did was 0 mana deal 2 damage to face, generously, then that's not even any good. It can be very cute against Freeze Mage, gets around Ice Block. That's a really cool, very niche use of that card, but it is cool. If you want to do that though, you probably should just play Kazan Mystic instead. Yes, you can play this card with Lotha, but now you're getting crazy. My conclusion with the card is, even if the cursed card costs like a little bit more mana to get rid of, it would still probably be a bad card. But given that the cursed card takes exactly the same amount of mana as Curse of Rafaam, then it's basically 0 mana, deal 2 damage to opponent's face. And that is bad. Reliquary Seeker. Zoo gets a new toy with your 1 mana 5/5. Just kidding. You never have 6 other minions in play. Because if you did, you would play Gormok the Impaler in your deck. And you don't even play Gormok the Impaler. What a joke. Don't pick this in Arena. It's worse than Angry Chicken. No, it's actually better than Angry Chicken. But it's still bad. It's the card that Shamans have been looking for the whole time. A 1 mana card that interacts with Overload. Worth mentioning is that you're getting +1 attack per locked mana crystal. You're not just getting +1 attack. So if you get overloaded for 5 in a single spell, then you're getting +5 attack. 1 mana 1/3 is pretty reasonable. You play the Dream Curve, you play the Tunnel Trogg into the Totem Golem, and then you have your 1 mana 2/3, which doesn't give your opponent 5 health. So it could be reasonable. Maybe there's an Overload deck in the making. And even if it doesn't exist yet, Tunnel Trogg has a chance of being played later on still too. The dream is turn 1 Tunnel Trogg, turn 2 Totem Golem, turn 3 Coin Feral Spirit. You have your 4/3 attacking behind 2 Feral Wolves, which taunt. That doesn't sound too bad. I mean, that is a dream scenario, but it's not absolutely out of the question. So, Tunnel Trogg, I say it has possible applications. In Arena, it's tough to draft enough cards with Overload to make Tunnel Trogg better, so it's really just a 1 mana 1/3, which just isn't good enough. Rumbling Elemental. This is a card, which again is a 4 mana cost card, which is not competing directly with Pillager Shredder, and I like their choice to kind of avoid cards that avoid minions that directly compete with Pillager Shredder. And certainly you're not going to make a card that's basic, which is better than Pillager Shredder. So anyways, this card lets you build some kind of battle cry deck, which is kind of like the pirate deck with Ship's Cannon. After you play a relevant minion card, you deal 2 damage to a random enemy. This thing is kind of tough. If Battlecry minions were better, this card would be pretty good. You have Bronzebeard, so maybe there's some kind of Battlecry deck coming up. Shamans do have one of the best Battlecries out there with Fire Elemental. Oh, and of course you put it in the crowd favorite deck too. I think one would be remiss not to at least experiment with the Rumbling Elemental crowd favorite Bran Bronzebeard deck, but we'll see. This is one of those cards with a very specific deck that you want to build around. In Arena, this card is probably going to be worse than Oasis Snapjaw, which means it's going to be below average. Everyfin is awesome! Ooh. Very unique ability. Get your minions +2/+2, costs 1 less for each Murloc you control. So the question is, at what mana cost and how many boosts do you have to give for the card to be good? Well, let's just go down the effects first. And by the way, it does say give your minions +2/+2, which means it's not just your Murlocs, so if you have totems out there, they're also going to get +2/+2, which is going to be a common situation, I would say. So let's imagine a world where you have 1 totem out, and we're going to kind of look at the Murloc effect. So for 7 mana you get +2/+2, that's bad. 6 mana you get +4/+4, that's bad. 5 mana you get +6/+6. So all you would have to do is have 2 Murlocs and a totem out, and the card actually starts to look halfway reasonable. It probably is better than Bloodlust. As much as one might be horrified by the high mana cost, it turns out that if you just have 2 Murlocs out and you have even a totem out, the card is like reasonably priced, and if you can do better than that, then that's even better. The main problem is getting those Murlocs out and then being able to cast this card, because if you have a lot of Murloc cards out, you arguably have already won. And yes, maybe this is the big finisher. It's kind of tough though. It is more flexible than Bloodlust, because even if it's really, really bad, you can just win with your totems, but still kind of questionable. You can just play the cute 0 mana 1/1 Murloc and then discount this card by 1, but I'm not even sure you would put the cute Murloc out in these Murloc decks, just because it doesn't have quite enough of an impact. Will Everyfin is awesome be the finisher that these Murloc decks need? I think just trying it out would be the way to go. my instinct says probably not useful enough to push the Shaman Murloc deck over the top. Needless to say, in Arena, this card is quite bad. Pit Snake. It is a 1-mana card that theoretically can defeat even the biggest of monsters. But it holds the same problem that 1-mana cards have held over the ages, which is that a 1-mana card with 1 health usually doesn't do much if it isn't a fast card, such as Abusive Sergeant, or doesn't guarantee to do something, such as Leper Gnome, dealing 2 to the face, or Worgen Infiltrator, which guarantees, most of the time, deal 2 to something useful. It is a really interesting effect, and this is about as fair as you could make a card, but you can directly compare this with Patient Assassin, which sees no play whatsoever, which only costs 1 mana more, but gets stealth, and that's a really important stealth card, because destroying any minion damaged by this minion, like, you could do it for 2, that's not seeing any play, Pit Snake will therefore not see play. Unearthed Raptor. Now, this is a cool toy for rogues. It pushes rogues in a slightly different direction. Maybe a mid-range rogue is possible with this. When Nax Ramus first came out, one of the cards that I was really obsessed with was Nerubian Egg. And Rogue had one of the ways to activate Nerubian Egg in the form of Cold Blood. There are quite a few good death rattle effects out there. You could put this rather good 3-mana 3/4 with extra benefits on top. You play this with your Shredder, you play this with your Loot Hoarder. Becomes 3-mana 3/4, draw a card when it dies. The card is obviously statted well, and I like how Blizzard is willing to release a card with good stats and an additional effect, especially in a class that currently has nothing of that type of deck. Obviously a strong card, but the question is it strong enough to cause mid-range or control or some such rogue to exist? And the answer is I don't think this is quite enough, but possibly. And yes, most amazingly is you put this on a really good death rattle effect, such as Sylvanas, which you would put into a mid-range rogue. In Arena, of course, a 3-mana 3/4 is going to be great, and even better, you can get a bonus on top, so it'll be a top Arena rare. 4-mana 5/4. This is another card that is designed to fit into the mid-range rogue. In theory, the card is basically a 3-mana 5/4, which is pretty good, but you have to pay up front. So a 4-mana 5/4 is not very good, and you're adding a coin in the late game, or in the mid to late game. You might be able to kill this off, or they will kill this off, and then on 5 mana you'll have like availability to play 6 mana worth of stuff, which is the coin does affect combos, and this continues a little bit of theme of rogues and coins, which is cute. Ultimately, I think this card is not quite good enough to make the cut, but it's close. It also combos with Unearthed Raptor. In Arena, this card will be like, maybe above average. This is Kalento's #1 pick. It's probably worth mentioning. Wait, did Kalento have a really negative view on this set then? Or does he actually think this card is good? Like, is that this is the best card in a terrible expansion? Or is that this is actually a good card? He said it was OP. What? Okay, it does combo with Shadowpan. It's true. He liked the whole set. Huh, interesting. Well, you don't get tempo. Help, I don't know how to play this game. One of the things that I haven't considered in these mid-range decks is that Shadowpan Infantry is a card that isn't currently seeing play. It's a 5-mana card which requires a combo. So yes, you can coin out the Tomb Pillager, play the 3-mana 5/4, you get your coin, you coin out the Shadowpan. That's pretty cool. Personally, I don't really see that much potential in this card, but that may just be because I'm not wrapping my head around the mid-range rogue being a thing. This is probably as much as you could push a 3-mana 5/4. And you have to admit a 3-mana 5/4 is pretty good, but the thing is you have to pay up front. It's not really my thing. Additionally, you have to consider that this card trades really badly against Pillager Shredder. I guess I'm going to just have to say, I don't really believe Kolento. In Constructed, I think this will see some trial in a mid-range rogue deck. In Arena, it's pretty good, above average. Priest gets a 2-mana 1/2 Battlecry Discover Death Rattle card. So, nearly the same as Battlecry Draw a Card, I'm going to say. So, nearly the same as Old Novice Engineer. Would Old Novice Engineer be played in Priest? I think it might be. So that means Museum Curator actually has a pretty decent chance of being played in Priest, I think. It's a nice card. I don't think you could make it any stronger than this. It would be too unfair. A nice card to play on turn 2 and then put the Valence Chosen on. It's been said that Priests don't have very many 2-drops. And, just anything that would be reasonable would be welcome. And I think this thing is reasonable. And that's good because right now the 2-drop in Priest is that Dragon, Rimwrist Agent, but it only fits in Dragon decks. And this card, I think, is a nice kind of basic card to fit into that. You can discover quite a lot of good cards with Death Rattle in Priest. In Arena, this card is going to be very good. Entomb. We can kind of compare it to Recycle from the Druid. Recycle was deemed not good. Of course, they're two different classes, so you can't even compare it. But the question is, would Recycle see play if it were in a Priest deck? And I'd say the answer is no. So now we have Entomb. You don't trigger the Death Rattle on the opposing cards, so that's nice. And you get to shuffle it into your deck, which is presumably good, because if you're paying 6 mana to get rid of an enemy minion, you usually want it in your deck. That said, 6 mana to kill 1 minion is too much. The mana savings you get by removing even the toughest card just isn't enough. Like, most people's high end right now is Dr. Boom, so you're only gaining 1 mana on that exchange, and then you do stick a Dr. Boom in your deck, but usually the games don't go on that long for that to matter. I'm going to say no to this one. And in Arena, this card is going to be better than Recycle, and Recycle is actually reasonable in Arena, so this card's going to be, like, arguably good. Kibler said it was good. It's cool that there are a lot of varying opinions on this. I mean, if you want to deal with a large minion, though, wouldn't you just put more Shadow Word Deaths? And if the format were ever to become that large, you would just put in 2 Shadow Word Death. Would you ever put in 2 Shadow Word Death and an Entomb? That seems a bit too crazy to me. And if the format ever got too slow, maybe you would put in Mind Control instead of Entomb. This is kind of the mid-point between those, but I'm still just not seeing it. I feel it's too slow. You can compare it to Siphon Soul, which is a hard kill, or you can compare it to Assassinate. Slightly better than that, kind of maybe more comparable to Polymorph plus Fire Blast. This one has a slight benefit over Polymorph plus Fire Blast, but Polymorph you don't actually have to Fire Blast, and it's 4 mana. Just is a bit too slow, and Siphon Soul would suck in any class that wasn't Warlock. And Assassinate isn't played in Rogue. I think that's pretty well said, that it's a slightly better Recycle for a class that needs it less than Druid, because Priests do have quite a lot of efficient removal. So if you don't see Recycle being played in Druid, then how can you see Recycle being played in Priest? And yes, this is not Recycle, but it is arguably around the same. It would only even matter if you were to get into the really late game games, which I don't think happens that much. 5 mana, we have Hellfire, except it doesn't deal damage to face, which is good for Priest because they usually want the longer game, and you get to give your opponent the Excavated Evil, which I think is good in general, because if you're playing a control game, you usually have minions that are tougher than dealing 3 damage. So the argument for this card being good is the Excavated Evil going into the opponent's deck is not going to be very good, so it's like you waste their card draw somewhere down the line. That said, I don't think it does enough in order to justify this. I think it just costs a little bit too much to make it work. That said, this card might have been interesting at 4 mana. I think it would see a decent amount of play then. And the shuffle of the card into your opponent's deck is quite interesting of an effect. But at 5, this feels like it costs a bit too much. You have Holy Nova, which already just deals 2 damage, plus gives you the benefit of not hitting your own minions and actually healing them instead. And comboing with your Northshire Cleric, which I feel like Priests are just going to keep running. This feels like it would be better in a deck with very few minions, but I don't believe that's currently possible with a Priest. So it doesn't seem like the right tool, doesn't seem like it's going to be the right tool for quite some time.
Adventure we seek, cross land and sea, born to